Hello and welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room for another edition of Transfer Central. Today I'm joined by Jack, Kev and Neil. Jack, I'll start with you. How are you doing today?
It's a nice, lovely day where I'm stationed from. Mid afternoon, gonna go enjoy the nice weather after the stream. No, it's an interesting time. It's like we're still a few weeks out from preseason, but it feels like the window's already closed. So it's definitely an interesting one. But I'm doing well. Charlie, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just got the F1 on in the background. Completely forgot it was in Canada, so it's a late one. But yeah, I'm doing good. Neil, how about yourself?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Good. Thanks, mate.
Been a while since we had you on.
Look, yeah, it's been. I think it's been a few weeks, so it does feel a bit weird at the moment because it feels like the season's been ended for ages, and everyone's getting frustrated. Yet the window's only really just opened, so it's a bit of a funny time at the moment. But yeah, I'm good.
And Kev, how you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Finally getting on. Nice Father's Day with the kids. Kids got me a nice present, so always good. So
Yeah, my last day without a Father's Day. So, my girlfriend wouldn't get me anything today. She said apparently I'm not a dad yet, so we move. But next year we never know. It'll probably fall on my birthday too. So, lovely double holiday. But that's not what we're not here to discuss. That we're here to discuss Liverpool transfers. But everyone joining, all the regulars: Helio, Matthias, Jen, Adam. Hello, everybody joining. Make sure you are leaving a like on the video. And if you are new to the stream, make sure you subscribe with the notifications on. A lot of people talking about the Sterling things. I'm not going to cover that first because that would be giving away the title. And we've got to cover that last. We've got to keep you around for the stream. So that'll be last. But I will give you the Calvin Ramsey stuff first because we'll start with some positive news after. I think it's going to be getting a little more negative after that. But Jack, Calvin Ramsey, we needed a right back, didn't we? We've been talked about. It's been talked about it a lot. Signing Calvin Ramsey. I think the total deal is 6.5 million, 4 mil up front with 2.5 million in appearance add-ons. I'm pretty sure. Aberdeen's transfer record is a good backup for us. It's a great deal for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and claim to be the expert and the be-all, end-all of Scottish football. I just don't have that knowledge base in me. But I can recognize that I trust the Liverpool Transfer Committee. Their scouting has been impeccable. Him and Carvalho are two guys who are young. They're going to come in, and my belief is that they're not coming in with the expectation they'll demand playing time immediately. But there's no ruling out they could come in and get some game time, which is big because I've always made the argument that every player needs someone right behind them to push them. Robertson became much better with Tsimikas behind him, and Trent, as otherworldly as he is, as young as he is, where Ramsey could recognize that for a decade he may be playing second fiddle to Trent Alexander-Arnold here, he's going to have to displace him somehow, and it's going to have to be, at any point. So that's going to push Trent to be even better in that position. I'm interested what they do with Nico because I think a loan is not always an option. Selling him is an option. I know people hated him as a forward. He had that really nice goal in the behind closed doors friendly before the return to football after the break during the pandemic. So I think he's like an interesting X factor that comes out of this, where Ramsey is now the backup, but Nico could also still play a part and really offer some great depth. I imagine all signs point to a departure, but I'm really excited to see him continue to develop. I imagine he'll play like Tsimikas did in his first season, where it's sparing, if any, appearances. So anything beyond that is house money, playing with house money. So my expectations are not very high, but I'm really, really excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, I spoke to an Aberdeen reporter yesterday. If you haven't checked that video, anyone chat, make sure you go and check it out. Who is Calvin Ramsey? Really good in depth if you're not too sure who he is. But he said that Calvin Ramsey is very much in the Trent Alexander-Arnold mold. He's very attacking, not too good defensively, but as we know, you don't really need to be a defender in this Liverpool team when you've got Virgil van Dijk playing next year. So it seems like we've just went out and signed the closest thing to Trent Alexander-Arnold, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think everything I've read kind of alludes to the fact that his playing style is as similar to Trent's as anyone that we could have got. So we know that Nico's slightly, a very different player to Trent. So I think he will fit the system. But like Jack, I'm curious as to where this leads now for Nico Williams, because I think anyone that's seen him play for Wales over the past couple of weeks, he's been impressive. We seem to be willing to listen to a bid of about 15 million for him. And then signals are now starting to come out the club that we might consider sending him on loan. Now, I didn't know whether that was a ploy to get someone to make a decent bid for him, or whether we're thinking we might have a player here that we need to keep hold of. So if we do loan him out for another 12 months, we can sort of kick the can down the road and make the decision then. And then even further back, we've got Connor Bradley, who is a Northern Ireland international. He's done well for the under-23s. Again, he's good going forward. I think he looked good in the games that he's played. So it's a real interesting quandary that I think we've got. I think all the signals seem to suggest that Ramsey will be frustrating as the deputy to Trent. So I'm sure he'll be very good. I trust our recruitment department, but it's just what happens with the other two that I'm really interested in.
Yeah, I think the fact that we've made such a big deal out of it on the Liverpool Twitter, and the fact that he's taken a first team squad number. We saw with Ben Doak, he didn't come in straight. He didn't even get announced by the club. I think he announced it himself on Twitter. So I think the fact he's taken 22, which is, a decent squad number. He's been talked about a lot by Klopp. He definitely comes straight in. And I do think that alludes to the at least sale or loan of Nico Williams. And there was also talks about Connor Bradley potentially going on loan to a championship side a few weeks ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But Kev, we saw how good Kostas Tsimikas was for 10 million. He was pushing Andy Robertson the entire season. There was calls the whole time to, get Kostas Tsimikas playing when Robertson wasn't doing too well. For let's say he reaches all his add-ons for 6.5 million for one of the highest rated Scotland under 21s. It's a great deal, isn't it?
It's fantastic. It's mad as well, because I watched your video, and I have to say, anyone who hasn't, well worth a watch if you don't know anything about them. But it's surprising that like Aberdeen, that's their record fee outside the top two in Scotland. I didn't expect that to be like one of the highest to be achieved, to be honest. So from that point of view, it's a snip for me. And I can only allude to what the lads have said. Do you know what I mean? It's a great deal overall. I do worry what happens with Nico. It'd be good if Connor Bradley goes out as well, because I think he needs the game time to develop. Like a bit like Nico. I think Nico needs to get away and grow in confidence, and he's done that, especially with Fulham, and it gave him a great. You only have to look at him in the second half of the season; he's done really well. Back to Calvin Ramsey, I don't see where the issue is going to be with him. It gives us a great opportunity now to give Trent as much of a respite as what we have seen with probably Robinson on the left hand side with Tsimikas. He's 9 assists, 1 goal. On YouTube, he looks like Cafu going forward. Do you know what I mean? But it's for me, it's a fantastic signing for me. Just sadly, I just hope it's not the last one.
Yeah, definitely. We'll go on to that. I know there's a Kai here who said, could this mean some minutes for Trent and centre mid? I did speak to Kieran about that, the Aberdeen reporter. He has actually confirmed that Calvin Ramsey can play right wing, right mid, and he has also played in centre mid for Aberdeen at youth level. So I said, could we see it? He doesn't see it. He thinks he's a bit too, not as physical, let's say. He's a smaller guy. So, but regarding Trent, I feel like we might have this debate till the end of time until we actually see it. We saw it with Gareth Southgate. He tried it, and Klopp was very against that. I mean, Jack, you look like you want to talk a bit on Trent and sentiment, so I'll pass it over to you.
I think in preseason it can't hurt. gets Ramsey some time at right back. Gomez, I think, was a decent option as a more, defensive option where he kind of sits in that much deeper spot, kind of sliding next to Fabinho, almost as an inverted fullback rather than being one who overlaps. I think it can't hurt to try it. I agree with the prevailing sentiment that he's the best right back in the world. Why take him out of that position? That's a very fair point, and I think that's what Klopp will probably end up falling back on. But it can't hurt to have versatility, and I think it would actually add to his game if he had experience in the center of the park, where he would be able to develop the receiving the ball with his back to goal, turning and bringing it up the pitch, kind of having that range and that vision in his head. As well as just operating in those spaces that he doesn't operate in usually. It can't hurt in the preseason. I'd be surprised if it was employed in a competitive match, but we've seen crazier things happen. I mean, we had Henderson and Fabinho playing as center backs together for a portion of last season, so I'm not ruling anything out at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go around you all. I mean, you just like, if you want to say it, give your opinion on it. But we've talked all about Nico. I think with the Calvin Ramsey introduction, it does put a lot of pressure on him. With Connor Bradley going out on loan, I think that's most likely going to happen. Connor Bradley getting some minutes. You look at the other right backs options. We have Joe Gomez was doing a very good job at the latter end of the season. At one game, he should have had 3 assists. James Milner renewing his contract, he can play there as well. It seems like we brought Calvin Ramsey in to be that backup, so we don't have to play Gomez or Milner there. We have a natural right back. But Nico Williams is the big one for me. Obviously, Neil alluded there that 15 million seems to be what we're willing to let go. Nottingham Forest and Fulham have both been interested in him. Do you think, again, open to anyone, do you think this is the time for us to sell Nico ahead of the World Cup? He's impressed with Wales. Do you think maybe this is the most we'll get from him?
My preference would be to keep him and to loan him out. But I think it will come down to whether we need the funds to be generated from a transfer for him. So I feel there's a player in there. And the longer we can keep him, the better. He does need to play because he's got the World Cup coming up later in the year. So a loan, from my perspective, would be best. But as I say, I think it will come down to whether we need the funds. Sepp van den Berg is another one I think that's been mentioned in the chat. He did play right back a few times for Preston as well. So he's got to be accommodated or go out on loan as well. So
yeah,
lots
honestly,
going on in that.
I can't see how tall is he? He's the tallest player in our team. I'm pretty sure. I think he's 6'7" now.
No, he's not that tall. No
Yeah,
way.
he's not that.
I think he's definitely taller than Virgil, and Virgil's
He's
6'5".
He's 6'2", according to
No.
Wikipedia.
Okay,
6'7".
Wikipedia is wrong because if you watch his sign interview, he's taller than Jurgen Klopp, and Jurgen Klopp's like 6'5".
All right, I have a picture right here from when they won the Club World Cup, and you have Van Dijk leaning over slightly, and he's still like right here. Van den Berg is. So 6'2", I think is very fair.
But I feel like he might be Pitalock. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's tall. Anyway.
Maybe this is just well done by the media to just like have him on a step stool so he like seems like a giant. So when the teams are playing him, they're like, "Wow, this is a massive guy." Oh, wait, maybe he's not that big actually. I totally agree with what Neil said though about Nico. Like you have the World Cup, and we see how many times do we see it where guys in this big international stage either explode their rep or just put themselves up to 3-4 times the price they would be. He's under contract till 2025, so we're under no obligation or pressure that even if we kept him for another year, is he really going to go down from 15 million pounds? Is this really going to be his apex and his value? I think he's a good World Cup and he's a 30-40 million pound player, or he's a genuine option for Liverpool. So I think a loan just makes sense in terms of keeping that option available.
Yeah, I agree with the lads. There's no reason for us to sell. There's no option for us to sell, I don't think. It'll come down to Nico, what he wants. How much game time he may be given at the club. So that's going to have to come into play, and then it's only a loan for me. I don't see the option of selling him now. I think selling him next season may be a more viable option and gives us more money going forward, based on, as what Jack has just said, alluded to, with a good World Cup behind him.
Charlie, you're muted. I don't know if you know that, but
Yeah.
We also he's lagging on my end, but we'll give Charlie. I had to go live because of Charlie's dodgy internet, so Charlie letting us down deeply here.
Just going back to the Trent thing, playing centre mid.
Yeah.
You only have to look at him in games this season, and you see it now where Hendo comes over and tracks whoever's on the right side of the midfield and plays in that in the right back role, and he actually then starts playing in the centre mid role. So it's not that it'll be. I don't see an option. I think more likely the way we have been doing is play him at right back, and at times where we are playing well, and we are on the front foot and we're dominant and predominantly the most of the times, then we do what we normally do, play Hendo, whoever's playing on that right-hand side, to cover the right back position, and he then plays in a free role in that centre mid part, which is what he's done for the best part of the second half of the season.
Yeah.
We may get more out of him doing it that way than actually playing him physically in there straight off first, and play him as a number 8 or a number 6, in my opinion.
There was a brilliant example of that, I think, against Burnley at Anfield. I think Harvey Elliott was actually playing in the right-sided midfield role, and he'd gone out wide, and Trent came inside, and I think the ball got clipped in from Elliott to Trent in the centre of the park, who just clipped the lovely ball into Mane to score the second goal. So I think as an opposition as well, if you've got a right back that suddenly pops up in centre midfield, it becomes, it's more difficult to deal with as well. So I'm with you, Kev. Let him roam when he's got the license to do so.
Yeah, definitely when it's allowed to. I don't expect it to be done in big games. I think now and again, as a surprise option, maybe to play him in there, but to play him in there straight away and have him down, I don't think that's in his game to do it. I think if we play it the way we have been doing, and he pops up in those positions, which is what he has done, I think we'll get more out of Trent doing it that way. Myself personally.
Yeah, apologies about an absolute terrible 5 minutes. My entire computer crashed, and then this little one thinks she's Rocky Balboa, barking at everybody. But
is he 6'7"?
Yeah, mate. Look at the size of her. She's huge. But yeah, I assume you all said all right things about Nico Williams while I was gone. But again, guys, make sure you do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. A lot of new faces in here too. So make sure you are subscribed. But the next story is about Mohamed Salah. It seems like this is starting to come to an end now. There was a story by the Mirror that basically said that Mohamed Salah, it said Jurgen Klopp extending was part of trying to get Mohamed Salah to extend his contract at Liverpool. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked, and the Mirror are basically claiming that Liverpool have offered as much as they can, and they're not willing to compromise anymore. Now, some of them reports have said it's 230 grand. I definitely don't believe that, because Virgil van Dijk's on 280. I personally would absolutely no sources think that it's around that much, maybe even 300. But there's been a lot of reports going around that Salah's wanting 400k, similar to what Mane wanted. But apparently, with the signing of Nunez, Liverpool are now sort of fine with losing Salah, and they feel like they have leverage on them. Jack, to me, it feels like this soccer's coming to an end now. It just doesn't seem like an agreement is there to be had. And, Liverpool have proved that they can buy world-class wingers, or not even world-class wingers, very good wingers, and turn them world-class, similar to what they did with pretty much every other winger they've had. It will no doubt hurt, but it's got to happen if he's asking for 400 grand a week, surely.
It's a tough one for me. I think, and in my opinion, right, I don't see a departure this summer for Salah. I just don't see that. And I think before the Mbappe decision to stay at PSG, I would have said no contract signed this summer and no departure this summer means he goes on a free for sure. Because I personally didn't see too many players. Maybe there's an example I'm forgetting. Players who were really going to the last 6 months of their contract, rumored to go elsewhere, deciding to stay in the summer when their contract's about to expire, like Mbappe did at PSG. Granted, we're not throwing everything in the kitchen sink at Salah, so that's a very different situation, obviously, and PSG might be the destination he ends up going to. I think that this is the kind of thing where if we really wanted to get leverage over him, Nunez is not the guy that alleviates that concern for me. It's signing a backup for Salah, who you give as a year as a deputy to learn the position practically, and then he replaces Salah when he goes on a free. That would truly, for me, put Liverpool in the best negotiating position. Signing a Jared Bowen. My dream is Bukayo Saka, but that's just way too expensive. That's just not going to happen. But if you sign Jared Bowen, he's also quite expensive too. But we'll just say, for argument's sake, that you have him as a backup. He plays 10, 15 matches because of the subs. There was a lot of them. So he's in a lot of fixtures, learning the system. He's learning from Salah. He could very easily replace Salah with a year of learning him under him and having to fight for that first team place. And then you just have that replacement if Salah goes. If you keep Salah, you keep him. That's great. But I don't know. I just don't buy that Nunez is the guy that puts you in that spot where you're comfortable with hardballing Salah. Because at the end of the day, Salah goes, what's your front three? It's Nunez, Diaz, Jota on the right. Elliott, I think Elliott's a step too quick on the right, or step too soon. So I don't know. It's tough. I don't fully buy that. I think there's still some reconciliation that could be had, because it just feels like the strategy for Liverpool right now is a bit poor for me, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, I'm sure you've wrote about it hundreds of times. We've talked about it hundreds of times. It feels like this Salah contract situation's been going on for years. In your opinion, do you think this is the end, or do you think it's a bluff from either the club or Salah's agents?
I don't think it's the end. And I think, as Jack said, the Mbappe one, he ran down his contract and was still there, and eventually he ended up signing. And the reason I don't think it's the end is because I think Salah loves Liverpool, and I think he wants to stay. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him sign a contract. I think the thing that worries me is our wage bill, as I understand it, is comparable to some of the biggest clubs in the world. So if we can't afford to pay our best players, the going rate, does that mean we're overpaying players further down the chain? Meaning that we haven't got the money to play the elite players the kind of wages that De Bruyne and clubs like that again. Because I don't think our wage bill is significantly lower than many other teams. So from a wage strategy perspective, I do have some concerns, but I don't think it's over. I think it's just going to drag on and on and on. I mean, what happens if he has a poor season? Can he still demand $400,000 a week or whatever it is that he's asking for?
I mean,
what happens then? So things. A year is a long time, and things can change very, very quickly. I think Jack makes a good point about the right side as well, because if you look at our front line, left side we've got Diaz, we've got Jota. Middle we've now got Nunez, we've got Jota, we've got Bobby. Right side it's really Salah. Okay, Ox did all right during AFCON, but there's question marks as to whether he will be around. So I think the club must have some level of comfort that he could stay, because we don't really have a recognised backup for the right wing. So that gives me some belief that he still may extend.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, we saw it with Mane. Mane didn't want his contract. We wouldn't meet Mane's contract of $400,000 a week. And I know what Neil's saying is we are comparable. We are comparable because of our bonuses, but a lot of players do want that guaranteed money, which is an issue for us because we won't do it. I mean, you look at Manchester City, $375,000 for Erling Haaland. I think for Kevin De Bruyne, $350,000 for Erling Haaland, 21-year-old. For me, it's not sustainable to have players on that much. But do you think we should be giving Salah that, even though the past 6 months he's been dreadful, to say the least?
Do you know what? You can look at it that way and say, yeah, let's hit him with it. and just give him what he wants because he deserves it. The problem you then go into a Barcelona kind of problem then, in which you then start giving players out left, right, and centre these kind of contracts, and you end up in a situation where it's not affordable to do, and we end up overpaying wages for people who, more than certainly, we don't look at after 30 because they fall off a cliff for some reason. We just let them go. Mane, I think Mane wanted to go because I think he feels he is on par with Salah and he doesn't want to be in Salah's shadow. So he wants to go somewhere where he's more dominant and is the main focal point. And it was probably one of the reasons why he wanted to go. Salah, for me, I think I agree with Jack very much with how the agents and how the club are playing it. They're having a game of risk at the moment and they're waiting to see who's gonna fall first. I think it will carry on a lot longer, and it will probably go into the middle of next season as well. And we'll probably end up with the situation we had with Steve McManaman, where you'll have fans on one side of the fence saying, just give him what he wants, and others saying, just let him go. Just let him go. Now, how it's going to end, I don't know. I do think he will stay next season. I think things will change. Injuries, lack of form could force his arm. But if he has another season like he has in the last 2-3, then he's very much going to be the ball's in his cause as to what he wants to do. I don't think, for me personally, there's another place he could go to who would love him as much as what we do. You only have to look at what's happened to Wijnaldum and other players that have left and have lost that love that the fans have had. But for me, this is going to continue, and how it's going to end, I just hope it is with an extension of maybe 1 or 2 years, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put this out to everyone again. My issue is if Salah leaves for free, we should be signing a player this summer to, learn under Salah and, maybe even push him this season and sort of prove to him, look, we don't need you to a certain extent. But are you happy with him leaving for free next summer when we could potentially be getting £60 million this summer to get a replacement for him?
In my opinion, who are you getting this summer that keeps you competitive this year?
Jarrett Bowen, Rafinha.
I
think in this Liverpool team they do.
I think I don't disagree that Jarrett Bowen 1 year from now in the system as the backup could do it. But I think when you look at Salah, next year is primed to be his best year ever, in my opinion. He's not going to the World Cup, so he has a month and a half in the middle of the season, or a month, where he's literally just going to be resting, training, and getting ready for the second half of the season. It's like you decided to, right when Salah usually has his dip in form, you decided to stick him in a little cryo chamber and just let him recover for a while. This is going to be one of his best years, in my opinion. And so the thing I've never understood is if Salah wants £400,000 as a base salary, that's very understandable. That's £20 million a year. It's a lot of money to spend on one guy. But if he wants in that region, would you spend £20 million on a player who wins the Golden Boot and is the playmaker, gets the playmaker award? I would spend £20 million a year on a guy like that. And if your bonuses carry you to that level because you're playing to earn those bonuses, I'm fine with that. No one's going to complain if he's playing at that level of the best player in the world. So in my opinion, and again, I don't know the specifics of the contract, but I would give him stupid high bonuses that if he plays to that level, he earns it, because £20 million a year is a lot of money, but it's also a lot of money to bring in. That's 3 years of Jarrett Bowen's contract right there. No, excuse me, 3 years of Salah is the fee to get Jarrett Bowen for £60 million, at least in my view. So it's for me at least, Charlie. I'll wrap up my point in saying that £4,000 a week is a lot, but in the context of him being the best player in the Premier League, that's fair. That's the going rate, and I think we should pay that if the bonuses carry it to there. But I agree, we shouldn't have too high an upfront fee.
The issue for me is why is he now suddenly asking for £400,000 a week? Because obviously he isn't going to be getting crazy bonuses, and we know from the likes of Alisson and Virgil van Dijk, if they reach these bonuses, it basically works out to like they're getting paid 300 plus grand a week. If they do hit them bonuses, it gives them the motivation to play better for Liverpool. why all of a sudden is he asking for 400 grand, and I assume not as many bonuses? Does he know that maybe his time is, and obviously I know he wants to secure a final contract and get himself, set for life basically, but he probably is already. It's like, does he know something that we don't? Is he asking for this 400 grand a week because maybe he knows it's coming to the end? The last 6 months were dreadful. He maybe played 2 games where he looked genuinely good. That's just my issue. That's not how we run the club. You're asking the club to basically turn into a Barcelona, as Kev said. You're asking the club to sacrifice something it's worked so hard for 10 plus years. And if you really love the club, I don't think you'd be doing that.
But the thing, my counter argument to that, Charlie, would be he's not asking for £400,000 and no bonuses. It's a deal that takes him to 400 grand with bonuses, now to a deal that gives him 400 grand and then more bonuses. That's just more money.
Then don't ask for bonuses, in my opinion.
But then you're going from, that's the same contract then. He's getting a 0% pay raise.
I don't think he's getting 400 grand a week now with bonuses.
I don't think so either. But at the end of the day, I think there is some middle ground between our points. I think that, and again, we don't really know what he's actually asking for. I'm not going to sit here and blame Salah for reports, right? Like we've seen countless times reporters have proven to be wrong, and that's not necessarily their fault. It's just that literally, if I was a PR agent of a club, I'd be lying to the reporters all the time about stuff. I would very rarely tell them the truth. I'd throw so much out there that no one has any idea what's happening. So like, I don't know. I don't fully buy that it's £400,000 up front, like as a guarantee that he wants. But again, and I just want to pull up, I'll make one more point, is that in the MLS, they have a rule called the designated player rule. It's like the Beckham Rule. So basically when they want to just bring David Beckham to the MLS, he wants a lot of money because he's David Beckham. He has this big commercial pull. So they made a rule where there's no salary cap hit for 3 players on your team. So for 3 players, you can pay them whatever you want, whatever they want, the player does, to bring them to your side. I think we should have a similar ideology for some players, that they are so good that they should just break the wage rule. But then what you have to acknowledge is that these guys are part of our designated player rule, and we're going to pay them this money. Unless you are up to their level, you won't be paid their level. You'll be on the rest of the pay scale with the rest of the players. That's what I would do personally. I think the money's there for that, especially if we're not going to be spending big in the summer.
I mean, yeah, I see where you're coming from. I've said multiple times on this stream, if he doesn't want over 300 grand a week, including bonuses that take him higher, I think 300 grand a week is a very reasonable to give.
Charlie,
yeah.
Just on what you said before about Salah, we sell him for 60 million. Who would you say would come in and guarantee us the goals that we will miss when Salah goes? Who would you look at to say, right, well, okay, Salah goes now, we get the money for him? Who are you looking at to bring in?
I don't think straight away anyone guarantees the goals, unless you change system, which I've got a feeling Klopp's going to change the system to a 4-2-3-1 next season, which we don't know how Salah's going to change his style of play when that happens. But, you look at it, I think we changed that right-hand side. We changed it with Diaz. We went for a more direct, maybe not more goal-scoring forward, but honest opinion, I think Jarrod Bowen would be the perfect player. I think he's English. He's Premier League proven. He got double digits in both goals and assists last year. He's still young, homegrown. I think at the moment he's probably the only one, but I don't think there's many world-class wingers up for sale, which is the issue.
I agree, but I also then think with Bowen and how well West Ham have been doing recently, that he's going to come with a high price tag, and it's going to be significantly more than what I would recognise as the amount he should be. I think he's more of a 40 to 60 million pound player, but they'll probably want more than that from him. As with Salah, I think he thinks he is the most focal point, and our team is needs him in that team.
I don't agree with that. I think Trent's our most important player.
No, I do. I do, but I think he has a mindset that he is the main man at the club.
Exactly, and I don't think no player is bigger than the club, and
No,
no player
I
ever
agree.
will be bigger than the club. If he wants to, I know he doesn't want to hurt the club, but by him demanding, or and again reports, but that's all we've got to go on, you know. And there's a lot of people saying it's 400 grand a week. You can't be having 400 grand a week at Liverpool. It's just not sustainable. We are not Manchester City. We're not Chelsea. We're not PSG. You know, we're not run by countries. Yes, we are run by a billionaire, but we are run by businessmen. Our club is self-sufficient. You know, we take loans from the for the stands. We take loans from FSG. We pay the loans back. We have to sell to buy. I don't mind that. I know people don't like it, but it's worked since FSG have been in here, and you can't hate them for what they've done. Yes, it'd be nice to spend more, of course it would, but we've went out to 75 million on Virgil van Dijk, 60 million on Alisson, 40 million on Fabinho, 100 million on Darwin Núñez. When we have needed players, we have signed them, and I honestly think if Jurgen Klopp asks for a right mid or a right winger who we need, then FSU would have no issue with backing him. And I've look, everyone on the stream knows I've been saying I think Salah, if we can sell Salah this summer, sell him. I've been on that train for a while. I've got some hate for it off people in this stream, but that's just my opinion. Look, I don't think anyone's bigger than the club.
I think there's a danger in selling him now, is that there's too much change too soon. So Mane was predominantly on the left. Luis Diaz has had half a season now to get up to speed. So we had the succession plan for Mane on the left. In the middle now, we've got to change. And again, it's Mane really that we're replacing, because he was fantastic for the last 6 months of the season. And we've got Núñez in. If we suddenly sell Salah, then we're looking at our whole front line of having changed. So I wonder if the plan now is that they've got 6 months to resolve the issue. And if they don't, they'll look to bring someone in in January that will be the successor for Salah. So whether it's a Bowen, whether it's a Rafinha, it might be too late for Rafinha because he might move on. So I wonder if that's going to be the plan. But for me, with the amount of goals that he gets, the amount of assists he gets, it's too big a risk to remove him from our front line as it stands. Yes, they might change the formation. Totally agree. But for me, having lost Mane's goals, I wouldn't want to be losing Salah's at the same time.
My other question, sorry to interrupt you, Charlie, is how many players in England are better than him?
Look, that's the thing. And I said it before, there is no player that comes in straight away and replicates the numbers that Mohamed Salah does. But it depends what Mohamed Salah we see. Are we going to see the Mohamed Salah the first 6 months or the Mohamed Salah the second 6 months? Because if we see the Mohamed Salah of the second half of the season, then we need to sign somebody in January.
But he's guaranteed 20 goals a season and more for a long time now.
I understand, but when have we ever seen a purple patch like we did from Salah towards the latter end of the season?
2017-18?
When he
even more so?
When he broke the goal scoring record?
Are you seeing a bad purple patch or
a bad spell?
A bad one.
He has never had a bad spell at Liverpool that went on as long as it did. I used purple patch there for some reason. He's never had that bad of a spell. Now, why is it happening now? What is the complete opposite? What is to say that he continues that run of form? And he's not scoring. But again, on the other hand, he could go back to his old self and start scoring every other week. And if that's the case, whatever, keep him for another season. I still don't think it justifies spending 400 grand a week. And to answer the question, who comes in and scores so many goals? I've seen that in the chat. Probably nobody. But did we ever think Mohamed Salah will come in the first season and score 32 goals in his first Liverpool season? No. What's to say that can't happen again? And the people who are saying it won't happen again, I think are completely wrong, completely deluded, because it happened with Mohamed Salah. We brought Mohamed Salah in for 30 million. He was an average player. He was a good player in Serie A, but not many people in Liverpool knew who he was, or in the Premier League. All we were aware of, he was a Chelsea reject. He comes in, breaks the Premier League goal record. To say that can't happen again, and to say somebody can't replicate his goal tally in the first season, I think it's very naive, as considering what we've saw from Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah. Players work wonders under Jurgen Klopp, and it could happen again for all we know.
I don't disagree with that, but we also need to recognize that we have 4 years of Klopp left. Of this team, a lot of it's getting old. Thiago, Keita, Fabinho, Virgil van Dijk, Robertson, Alisson, Matip, Milner especially, are all nearing, Henderson are all nearing or entering their 30s. You can't go tossing Salah out the window for 60 million up front for a guy that you have to spend that exact same amount of money on. Because Charlie, what you would be doing is you would be making a equal money swap for one guy to another guy to just have a reduction in quality. I agree that a guy could be great, but I trust
we
Salah.
don't know if it would be a reduction in quality, though.
I trust Salah more than I trust anybody else.
I understand, but we don't know it will be a reduction in quality. You can speculate it can be a reduction in quality, but you can't say for definite. For all we know, we could sign Jared Bowen and he could score 40 goals. That is not impossible.
Hey, they could sign me on a free for much cheaper, and I may bank some in. I'm like Peter Crouch. I may just get on some crosses.
They could.
You're 6'10", aren't you, Jack?
I'm 6'6". Yeah, I'm just an inch shorter than Crouch. But look, I think the one thing Salah needs to do is Google Premier League salaries and see that Cristiano Ronaldo makes £26 million a year, Kevin De Bruyne makes $20 million a year, David De Gea makes $20 million a year. He looks at those names. Maybe KDB can hold a candle to me. Beyond that, none of those guys.
And look at the clubs that are paying them, apart from Kevin De Bruyne. They're in absolute shambles because they've offered these average players 200 to 400 grand a week. Jesse Lingard was on about 220 grand a week at Manchester United for like 4 years.
I just don't think you can argue the commercial, the revenue that Salah brings back. I'm not
arguing that. But if you say that, why aren't we offering Takumi Minamino that? Because the revenue he brings in is probably similar in the Japanese market.
But he can't demand that, because what you do is that.
You've just said revenue.
But Charlie, if you argue that we're breaking our wage structure to sign Salah, that insinuates that no one that the FSG, the negotiators, don't have any backbone. They clearly have backbone. They're kicking a club favorite Mane out the window.
Obviously, I haven't said they haven't got a backbone.
But I'm not claiming you said that. But to say that they can't then say to guys like, because who would then go and demand 400 grand a week? Maybe Van Dijk would.
Van Dijk, Alisson would. Trent eventually.
Yeah. Cool. Those two guys get it. And Trent, you got to wait your turn for those guys.
Potentially Fabinho, how important he is in our midfield.
You say no. You don't get that. He doesn't
don't attacking players always get paid slightly more, though? Isn't that
exactly
just the nature of the beast?
Yeah. How do you win football matches? You don't win it by preventing goals. You win it by scoring goals.
And how do you win league titles, Jack?
You win it by scoring more goals than your opponents.
Oh, what's the famous saying though? The attack scores your goals, defense wins your league.
But you can't just by that logic, stick 11 defenders back there and you should be fine.
Just going back on what Neil said, which I think is a valid point, by the way, is that we don't want too much of a change of guard, especially in our front three, because it'll stop the evolution. It will bring it to a stall, which is what we've been very good at fine-tuning and bringing players in at a certain time when it's needed. Too much of a change too soon can actually stop and stall and prevent us from continuing the fluidity that we normally have. So, although Darlin's necessarily through the middle, he does like playing on that left-hand side like Mane does. So you do have the option of having Jota in the middle. I am concerned about on the right hand side. I get that, and that Harvey Elliott as backup, I don't think, and I agree that we need to bring someone in, but too much change. I'm very one of the heart to say no, not too much change. Give him another season, and let's hope that Charlie's in that boardroom bringing Salah's agent to a head and knocking him out so we can sign a new 2-year extension.
Last thing I'll say, Charlie, because I know we want to probably move on to other topics, and this is probably the last thing I'm going to say. I've said it a couple of times, is I don't think there's anyone better suited to be paid that kind of money than Salah is. He wanted a 3-year contract, which is perfect for how old he is. And in 3 years, he's out the door. Either you sell him a year early, or you let him walk, or you sign him to cheaper terms. And that means that you're not doing what Barcelona did, where you have guys like Busquets, like Jordi Alba, like Piqué, who are in their mid-30s. They've been on this massive wages for years now. You're signing him at his absolute apex, and you're trying to get him as he's at his prime, slight drop-off. That's when you want to be signing him. If Trent goes and asks for that at age 25, I'd be more hesitant. I might concede because I want him here for the next decade plus. But then he's got to have those wages for the next 5 to 10 years. Versus Salah, it's only 3 years. It's 60 million pounds of wages if you sign him for that over 3 years. More if there are bonuses, I understand that. But that's the upfront cost for a forward who might produce what Salah can. And my opinion is that we shouldn't sign him to 400 grand a week right now. We wait 6 months. We wait 12 months. We push it as far as we can, get as much information as we can before making a decision. I truly think Salah does love the club, but I'm not going to sit here and claim that if he goes somewhere for money, he's some sort of traitor. You know, everyone does things for money. He donated 6% of his wealth last year to charity. He wants to make more money. Him and Mane want to make more money to donate more money, to give back to the roots that made them the players that they are today. So I'm not going to, I truly think that the best case scenario, or the best route of action, is let him move on, or at least keep him for those 12 months, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we'll end it there. I just want to go on a charity thing really quickly. Liverpool aren't a charity, we're a business. Yeah, It's great what they do with the money, but we can't say, here's 400 grand, go and spend it on some hospitals in Egypt. Like, it's nice and all that, but we, as a club,
he can do what he wants with this money.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
We're spending our money on the best player in the world.
Yeah, maybe. Look, this isn't going to end because we're not going to sell Salah this season. My opinion won't change. It's been like this for 6 months. Anyone can disagree with it. How much do you like? I don't care. I won't change my opinion. It's a lot of people are very set in a mindset. I'm trying to, see it from different perspectives, but I keep coming back to mine. So, again, guys, this channel is, getting opinions out. We ideally don't want to be arguing, but we'll move on to the next topic because we've been on this one for about 30 minutes. But make sure you do leave a like on the video, guys. There's 120 people in here. Also, subscribe with notifications on. Okay, next one, bit of a silly story. Liverpool have been linked with Vinicius Jr. By a very, very reliable Real Madrid journalist, must I say. So for the people who in Twitter who were calling him not reliable and lies, it's a top source for Real Madrid. Basically, us, Manchester City, Chelsea, PSG, and a few other clubs contacted Vinicius Junior's agent to ask him if he would sign. However, he turned them down straight away and said Real Madrid is the top. He doesn't want to leave, and he's signed a new contract with Real Madrid, which will be announced in July, according to a lot of people. So it's a bit of a non-starter, but we're talking about Salah replacements. Jack, there's probably not many better than Vinicius Junior, is there, to maybe replace him? But it seems like it was just a bit of a Kylian Mbappe, Erling Haaland. We were just like, how much would he want?
Yeah, he's being paid what, 10 million euros a year? That comes out to like 200 grand a week, something like that. That's a very fair deal. I think PSG offered him stupid money, but I'm glad he turned that down, because that should not be the trend football is turning to. My prevailing memory of Vinicius Jr., well, now it's more tainted because of the goal that beat us in the Champions League final, is more so that back when we played them in the 2020-21 season, Chedu was calling him trash the entire time we were playing them, like in the build up to playing them in the quarterfinals, and then he scores the goal in the first leg, and is one of the big reasons we get knocked out. So I will always remember him for that, and the turnaround he's made in the last 12 months. Yeah, I agree. Non-starter. It really didn't make much sense for him to leave Real Madrid. Would have been a great signing, but I mean, I don't know. I just would have been very stunned if that happened. Like that would have been up there with the weirdest and craziest transfers that have ever happened, because that would have been a remarkable get. But unsurprised it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, it would have been a statement side. Probably Real Madrid would have been demanding over 150 million for him. It is a bit strange that Liverpool asked, though, isn't it? Maybe they were just feeling out the water, but to me, it just doesn't seem like a Liverpool signing, honestly.
No, it doesn't. I don't know if it was an old report, because I think I'd seen this reported somewhere a few months back, but it was never going to happen, was it? He has had something of a breakout season at Real Madrid this season. I think 22 goals, 20 assists. They're not going to let him go. He's young. He's got everything that they want, and at a young age, he's already having a big impact. So, no chance that was ever going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, what are your thoughts on it? We'll keep this one nice and short, but it seems like a non-starter, doesn't it?
I'll keep it as short as this. I agree with the lads. Let's move on.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, we'll keep that one nice and short. So nice and short clip for YouTube. Probably get uploaded on a double upload. But next story. It's not Raheem Sterling, but you guys are going to have to wait a little bit longer for that. It is that Liverpool are making absolutely no more signings, and our contract and our transfer window is done, according to absolutely everybody apart from Sky Sports. The Mirror are claiming that we are now focusing on the contracts of Joe Gomez, Diogo Jota, Naby Keita, and Harvey Elliott, who seems to sign a contract every single season with Liverpool. But apparently he wants a new one. Joe Gomez and Naby Keita, I think, makes sense to a lot of people because they're especially Gomez. Keita's on the last year, and we've just been a lot of rumours discussing it. Jack used to be a lover of Naby Keita. You have turned on him, to say the least, in our chat. I'll let you explain why, but it seems strange that our transfer window's ending, doesn't it? Considering we needed a midfielder, it was the one position we needed going into the transfer window.
We've had a year and a half of this channel. We had the Ben Davies, Ozan Kabak window. We had Ibrahim Konate. And then we came out of this window. We had Luis Diaz, I can't forget. And then we came out of this window. We were throwing punches. We were ready to. We signed 3 players. We had Ramsay, Carvalho, Nunez. We're breaking our transfer record. And we're like, all right, we're done. That just feels weird to me. Like, that just feels so weird to me to end it so soon. I feel like it's my prevailing hope is that this is just some sort of really nice ploy by the PR department of Liverpool to just make the next signing even more exciting. Like, if they just go and sign Jude Bellingham, like, you just have like celebrations across the city of Liverpool for that. I can't imagine we're done. It feels like we're one player short. I've always felt like that. In regards to the contracts, Gomez, love a new contract for him. Jota, he's earned one. I think he's got a big role to play going forward. Harvey Elliott, I think if it's just getting more years on the contract, I think that's fair. I don't think he's earned a kick up in wages too crazily. For Naby Keita, it was like after that final, I was very harsh. Was it? What was it? It was pretty harsh. My criticisms of him right after the final. But I feel like where I stand currently is, we can re-sign Keita because we just have the squad space for him. If we got a decent offer for him, sure, I could see him going. But what would we do with that money? Like, we're already paper thin in the midfield. And when the spots we do have are guys like Keita and Thiago who are not consistently fit, and you can't trust them to be consistently fit. I shouldn't say Keita's not consistently fit because he was pretty good with that last year, but you don't trust him to stay that way. I think he's a decent option, and gave him a new contract, 2-3 years, just maintain his value. If he has a good season, is good because maybe Keita surprises us all and has a good season where he stays fit and he's that guy in the midfield because he still has that in him. But I mean, when did he sign? 2018. We got 4 years of Naby Keita, and he hasn't really kicked on. Injuries have been very harsh, but I'm losing my faith, if not completely lost all my faith in his ability to be that player we once thought he could be. So hopefully whatever terms he signs make it possible for him to be on a reduced role where it's just a luxury position. Because I think we can't afford to have him and Thiago in the side. I think we need another midfielder, but I think we can afford having 2 guys who, when fit and firing, are great, but they aren't always fit and firing. They both played less than 50% of Premier League minutes. So it's like That was the big issue, is we couldn't trust those guys to both be together throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, you've been very in our chat. You sort of seem fine-ish with, potentially not signing a midfielder. I particularly have been very vocal about needing that right-sided 8 in a sense. I've said the absolute perfect player would be Steven Gerrard in his prime. Unfortunately, Steven Gerrard isn't in his prime. But I think the closest thing to the player we need would be Jude Bellingham. It's no interest at all that we are interested in Jude Bellingham. And the only really right-sided midfielder we have is Jordan Henderson, who has been, let's say, degrading in front of our eyes the past year or so. What do you think we do need another signing? I mean, I think this window's been a success. We've bought players in early. It's been a good transfer window. But I think a midfield signing would take it from good to excellent and, really plug that final puzzle piece to push on to Manchester City even further.
Yeah, so I think my priorities for the window was we needed to sort the right back situation out. That was either with Nico Williams saying he was happy to stay as a deputy, or we brought someone in. We've done that. With Mane going, we had to bring in what we hope is a high-class replacement for him. Nunez looks the part. Whether he will deliver, we have to wait and see. So they had to be the ultimate priorities. For me now, I would like to see someone brought in the midfield. I think the issue is the numbers are there already. So I think we've probably got 8 or 9 midfielders, if you include Carvalho in that. I know he plays in a more attacking role as well. And Klopp's argument may well be that Milner can play on the right side, Jones can play on the right side, Case can play on the right side. So I don't see them making a move for a midfielder unless we lose someone. And it's possible because we've got Ox in there that could quite easily move on. Whether they would consider loaning Curtis Jones out, I don't know. But I don't think it will happen unless someone moves on. And the only reason I'm relatively calm about it is I think we're in a good position. If I think back to January 2021, when all the centre-backs were injured and we were scrabbling around to see who we could get on deadline day, I think we're in a far healthier position now than we were then. So, as I say, the right side of midfield would be my next area that I'd want to strengthen. But whether it'll happen, I think, will be dependent on outgoings.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, there's arguments to be had. Yes, we have squad depth in midfield, but how good is that squad depth? You've got Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, Jordan Henderson, James Milner. If you want to class Tyler Morton, you look at that and you're like, you've got Fabinho, you've got Thiago, both world-class players. That right-sided midfield just seems a bit average. And as much as I dislike Gini Wijnaldum as a Liverpool player, we never replaced his numbers. And that, if we replaced him that last summer, who knows, was that maybe worth an extra point? Was that maybe worth an extra 2 points? It's hard to say because we can't see the past, but it seemed like a position we needed filled last summer, and to now not go this summer without replacing someone, it just seems a bit naive for me, especially when Manchester City are, in that midfield role, the link with Calvin Phillips as well, to replace Fernandinho. It doesn't seem like they mess around where it seems like we like to wait for our transfer targets where, yeah, it's good, but it can also backfire on you.
It can, but apart from Ben Davies and who else? There's another transfer that
Oxlade-Chamberlain. Oh, Kev's gone.
Lost Kev.
I think he was going to say, I'll go on for him, but I think he was going to say, obviously, what transfers have done bad. Ben Davies, potentially Karius, Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Oh, yeah.
He's back. He's back.
Oh, there we go. You're back. I'll let you continue, Kev.
Sorry, yeah. It was a good job I went out there. I forgot about Karius. So, it's if you take those 3 out, our actual scouting, our dossiers that we put on players, is very good. I'm in Neil's camp, to be honest. I'm not fair than anything. I think it was more fearful last year that we only bought a centre half in, and that was it, and that was our window done. Do you know what I mean? So I'd like to know how Twitter was and how it was on here, because that scared me more last season with just bringing one centre back in and then wait until January to bring Luis Diaz in. Now, this team, I'm sorry, but we finished second. We played every game possible, 63 games. They're a year older, I get it, but I don't see them falling off a cliff. For me personally, I think it's going to be a big season for Elliott, a very big season for Curtis Jones as well. Now, I get that he has been playing rather deep than he's normally used to at academy level, where he's been playing on a bit further forward. But they are going to have a big major say in this season. Also, keeping the likes of the two Quavers who are built out of Quaver crisps, that's Thiago and Keita, fit. If they keep themselves fit, this team can do what they did last season. I don't see where the issue is. I think we need to wait until January. By which stage we may bring someone in. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not concerned about. At the minute, I think the numbers are there. I think the numbers are even further there if we change the formation to a 4-2-3-1, because then the emphasis isn't based on the two; it's based on the three that can predominantly play in that position. And I think Bobby will come into his own playing in that position rather than being in a false nine. He plays the number 10. It gives us further options that we can actually do. A lot of games next season, I can see us doing what we did at the end of the season, going to 4-2-4 in situations as well, because we are that dominant, especially at home against the weaker sides. So I don't see it as an issue at all. Don't get me wrong. I may fall on my arse on that, and I'll have people asking me about this after our first defeat in September or so. But at the minute, I'm not concerned as to who if we don't bring anyone. I agree it's an issue, and I agree that Ronaldo, we could look at bringing him in, but who's to say Jake Spearman can't step up and have a go?
Yeah, that's a bold one. I want to jump a point on Charlie. I don't know if you saw the thing that I'd sent in the YouTube chat where it was a little graph scatter plot of players. I posted it on Twitter, not on my personal one that's right here, but on I have another channel, and it got 4,000 likes and millions of people talking about it. I got so much dopamine from that tweet. It was amazing. But the main thing that I hit on was Henderson was Liverpool's most creative midfielder in terms of shot creating actions and goal creating actions. And that's a twofold thing. One, I think it was surprising that he was the most effective, or at least the most creative. It was more so just the fact that he played so much. But it also showcased that we have guys who can get in positions to score. I don't think our midfielders can be purely guys who just win the ball back and give it to the more talented players. They also, I think, in my opinion, they should be able to create something. When you think about Stevie, he could score from anywhere pretty much inside the attacking half as a midfielder who also was capable of doing the dirty work and carrying the water for other players. So I think there is a midfielder out there that could really push the needle for us to the next level. That I don't know if Jude Bellingham is the perfect guy for that. I think he is, but and I'm not sure if maybe there is someone lingering out there where they could just, because the midfielders touch the ball, they touch it in the attacking third, they get into the penalty area a lot. So having guys who can be more lethal, bigger threat, that's the spot on the side that I think is of the biggest ability to improve. Either turning that right-sided 8 into a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1, or getting someone there who just makes us a bigger threat. And maybe Elliott is that guy. But I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things to happen. I think we're one player short. So
yeah, look, I just want Jude Bellingham in a Liverpool shirt.
Yes.
But I'm sort of not going into the season. Going into the transfer window, I was like, we need a right centre mid. It's the first thing we need. But the Darwin Núñez transfer sort of changed it a bit for me now, because I'm 95% confident we're playing a 4-2-3-1 next season. Klopp did it with Lewandowski at Borussia Dortmund. He had a tall striker who and he loved playing Marco Reus right behind him. That's probably going to be Fabio Carvalho or Firmino or potentially Jota. And I think with that, we don't potentially need a centre mid as much now. You're probably going to have Fabinho and Thiago be that main two in the back, which I think would be perfect. And then you got Keita, Henderson being their main backups, and I think you see the likes of Jones and Harvey a bit more forward and Carvalho. So it's not as big as a thing for me. I just think you can sign him now. Why not sign him now? Like next season, we run into Real Madrid and Manchester City and Manchester United, even though they're not as big as a worry. You run into other clubs because Borussia Dortmund are going to be like, yeah, we'll sell him this summer. Whereas if you go in now, yeah, you might pay an extra 10 mil more, but you guarantee a signing. So that's my only thing. But really quickly, we are going to go on one more topic, a quick one, a Raheem Sterling one. The fact we talk about Salah for like 30 minutes is when it made it a bit over time, but it's fine. There's still 100 people in here, so make sure you do leave a like on the video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you are new. But Raheem Sterling, we haven't actually been linked with him, but he is potentially on the move to Chelsea for 35 million. He's got 1 year left on his contract. There was a massive debate that got out of hand in the stream chat. But the main thing was, would you take Raheem Sterling for 35 million to Liverpool? Now, before I get onto your guys' opinion, I said no. I don't like how we dealt with the situation at Liverpool. We brought him up from nothing. He was at QPR. QPR let him go. I'm pretty sure he said himself he was a troubled youth. He fell in with the wrong crowd. Liverpool paid all of his lawyer fees for going to court, basically made him the player who he was. And I don't think Sterling would deny that. And the way he left for me has always had a sour taste. And that's today why he's still booed. And you don't get many players who are booed for coming up to 10 years now. But I know there's people in this chat who would happily take him back. Jack, I'll go on your opinion. 35 million, that's the rumour that Chelsea or the price Chelsea are willing to sign him for. Should Liverpool bring him back?
I had to go read that debate in the chat. I wasn't involved. I was off my phone when that was happening.
I'm gonna save you the time. Don't. No, it got out of hand massively. And we ended up on Jimmy Savile. That's how far it went. So I'll save you the time.
But now I want to see the transition of the chat from Sterling to I am ambivalent. If Klopp speaks with him, if he's interested in kind of having almost an improved legacy with Liverpool fans, he wants some unfinished business, wants to win a title here. If he wants to come back and he seems to be, bought into pushing Diaz and Salah for places, I think he could be a genuinely great backup option. I don't think he breaks into our starting 11, but his flexibility, his experience, and his movement are unbelievable. I've always thought the guys like him, Pulisic, Timo Werner, who are great movers off the ball, but sometimes they lack the technical ability. Sometimes they just are terrible finishers. They would be great in a Liverpool side because we have the passers. We have the system that's, if you're a good off-ball movement, like Diogo Jota, like Sadio Mane, you can get a lot of opportunities and you can have some really, really big moments. 35 million is a pretty good fee for him. He's still a class player. He's a really, really good player. But I just, personally, I don't see City selling him to us because, we're their biggest rivals. That just wouldn't make sense. It's clear that they don't view Chelsea as a big threat because they're willing to sell him to them. I would do it, but I also wouldn't care either way, to be honest. So,
yeah, Neil, there's a long history with Liverpool fans and Raheem Sterling. There is no denying that at all. But for 35 million, some people seem fairly interested in bringing him back. He is a left winger, which I feel like we don't really need at the moment. It's the one position where we are a bit stacked in. But he can play on the right, he can play up front. What are your thoughts on bringing him back?
So if I take the emotion out of the situation, he's a very good player. Numbers are good, experience is good. But he plays better from the left. And if we have an area where we might need a bit of depth, it's on the right. So even taking out all the history with Sterling, it's a no. And based on the circumstances around his departure, it's a very firm no from me.
Sorry, but Kev, what are your thoughts on it?
I totally agree with Neil. It's hard to keep your emotion out of it with Raheem, with how it ended. For me, how many people are we going to have on the left hand side predominantly? Because it's worse than the centre back situation that we had. Do you know what I mean? Where we had like 5 or 6, and we had Ben Davies in there as well to add into the mix. I just don't see it as a starter at all. So it's a no for me.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was such an overwhelming no from everybody, to be honest. I'm like, and you know what? For the sake of placating and not making too much drama, I'll join you guys. No, not at my club.
Cheers, yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a lot of baggage with with Raheem Sterling, and I know he said that he wants to play under Jurgen Klopp. But I think that train's gone the way he left Liverpool, similar to how Felipe Coutinho did. Even though I feel like a lot more people wanted Coutinho back, that it was never going to happen. Jurgen Klopp wouldn't allow it. I don't think Jurgen Klopp would want the stigma that would come with Raheem Sterling. I know we've said try and remove the emotion out of it, but as Liverpool fans, we're very passionate about our club, and emotion has to be in it, and it always will be. So I think that rules the silent out. I do think he'd be good at Chelsea because I think he lack actual wingers. So I think if he does go to Chelsea and he gets a bit more free reign and he's not playing that whole Pep Guardiola get at the back post Sterling and tap it in, which he's surprisingly rubbish at because he misses tap-ins loads, but he scores loads. So
I think that's the point. He actually overachieves for his ability because technically he's by far the worst of Man City's players. Technically, his first touch and his finishing is really poor compared to some of them. So he has to be given some credit for for what he has achieved, but technically he's lacking compared to a lot of all of our players and all of their players as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the general consensus of people in the stream is a big fat no. But if he wasn't Raheem Sterling and he was just a random player, it would be a great deal.
And a right winger.
And a right wing,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but
I have a question. Is there any, like, you think about wingers, right? Sterling as he was a left winger, Diaz left winger, Salah right winger. They're all guys who, like, their strong foot is the opposite of the position they play. Is there a good winger out there that is the opposite, where like they're right-footed but they play on the right wing?
I think Sadio Mane started for us on the right, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He's one of the last ones I can think of.
Look, yeah. I think inverted wingers going into more the tactical way to do it. That's just what the popularity is now, because a lot of teams like to play possession football. So if they're, Ryan Giggs, them old type of wingers, their goal was run up, cross it into the two in the middle. Now that's not a thing. We want to pull back and, pass around or pass it to the right back and spring across in there. So you have to be opposite footed to cut in, and obviously, your dominant foot. It'd be a good thing to talk about Kris about, but I don't think we'd sign it. Well, someone did mention it about Sterling. I don't know why we'd go after Sterling, pay 35 for him when you can get Ousmane Dembele for free. He's a right winger too.
If you're going to gamble, I would prefer Dembele.
Yeah, definitely. He's younger. I know the injury record's there, but I think there's more talent in Ousmane Dembele. But anyway, guys, this has been a long stream. We've had pretty much 100 people in it the whole time, so really appreciate that. 2 videos came out today. We've got a Calvin Ramsey Who Is video with Kieran Fleming. Make sure to go and check that out. It's a really good watch. And Matty talked about why Liverpool can sign Jude Bellingham this summer. Really good watch as well. So make sure you get both of them videos in after the stream end. But make sure you do leave a like, subscribe, turn the bell notifications on. I've been Charlie. We've been the LFC Transfer Room. Check out all the Twitters, and thank you for watching, and goodbye.